The neighborhood was quiet. The air was still. A single streetlight flickered in the distance, casting long shadows across the pavement. A woman, dressed in a neatly pressed blazer, stood at the edge of the driveway. Her posture was rigid. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for her phone. She took a deep breath. Then she dialed. The sound of the ringing cut through the silence. 1 ring, 2 rings, then an answer. 911, what is your emergency? Her voice was calm, too calm. I need to report a suspicious person, she said. He is trespassing on private property. A pause. Her eyes darted towards the house in front of her, its windows dark, its doors locked. She took another breath. He looks dangerous, she added. I feel threatened. The dispatcher asked for more details, but she did not hesitate. She gave a name. She described the man. She made sure every word sounded urgent. On the other end of the line, the wheels of justice began to turn. What she did not know, what she could never have anticipated, was that her call would set off a chain of events she could no longer control. Inside the house, the lights flicked on. A voice echoed from the doorway. She had no idea who was on the other end of the line. In that moment, everything changed. Marcus Reed, a disciplined former military officer, carried himself with quiet strength. His time in service had taught him the value of structure, integrity, and vigilance. He was not a man easily shaken. Every decision he made was intentional, every detail of his home a reflection of his careful nature. Catherine Brooks, the self-appointed guardian of the Homeowners Association, wore her authority like a badge of honor. A striking red accessory, always part of her outfit, served as a symbol of her dominance. Her eyes scanned the neighborhood like a watchful ruler, always searching for infractions, always ready to impose her will. Alex Reed, Marcus's son, had seen countless emergencies unfold in his role as an emergency responder. He understood better than anyone the weight of a 911 call. He knew how a single report could alter the course of someone's life. And tonight, his father was at the center of one. The lines between power, control, and justice were about to blur, and none of them could predict what would happen next. The sun had barely set when Marcus stepped into his front yard, a small gardening tool in hand. He crouched down, planting a fresh row of vibrant blue petunias along the edge of his walkway. He stood back, admiring the contrast against the deep green hedges. A sharp voice cut through the air. "You cannot plant those here," Catherine Brooks declared, standing at the edge of his property. Her red scarf flicked in the wind like a flag of warning. Marcus turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "They are just flowers. They are not on the approved color palette." Her tone was steady, unyielding. "This is a violation." Marcus sighed. He had heard rumors of Catherine's strict rules, neighbors whispering about fines and warnings, but he had never imagined she would enforce something as trivial as the color of flowers. Before he could respond, his phone buzzed. It was Alex. "Dad, listen carefully." His son's voice was hushed, urgent. "She just called the police." Marcus stiffened. "For what?" "For suspicious activity," Alex said. "She reported you." A cold wave of realization washed over him. It was not about the flowers. It had never been about the flowers. Marcus glanced at Catherine. She was already dialing. Marcus knew something was wrong when the notices started appearing. At first, it was a simple fine, a $50 penalty for parking his car outside for 23 minutes while unloading groceries. The paper was slipped under his door, the ink sharp and unforgiving. Then came another, a formal violation stating that his grass was precisely 0.25 inches too tall. Attached to it was a photograph, a measuring tape pressed against his lawn, the tiny discrepancy captured with eerie precision. Marcus shook his head. He had mowed the lawn only 2 days prior. The next notice was even worse. A letter declaring that the shade of his front door was non-compliant. No explanation, no reasoning, just another fine. Marcus felt the pressure building, each violation tightening like a rope around his property. Then came the moment that changed everything. Late one evening, Marcus arrived home to find his front door handle stiff under his grip. The key did not turn. Confusion flickered in his mind as he tried again. He pushed against the door. It did not budge. His locks had been changed. A slow realization crept over him, settling deep in his chest. She had done this. Catherine Brooks had taken her authority to its absolute limit. Marcus was no longer just a homeowner under scrutiny. He was a target. Marcus sat at his desk, the soft hum of his desk lamp filling the quiet room. He sifted through piles of property papers, each document revealing another piece of his past. Then his eyes fell upon a faded note tucked between legal contracts. A glimmer of hope sparked within him as he read the words that would change everything. He discovered that his home was never required to abide by the Homeowners Association rules. It was sold as an independent unit, directly from the developer, free from the burdens of arbitrary restrictions. Marcus read each line slowly, the weight of the revelation sinking in with every word. With new determination, he began a deeper investigation. He scoured file after file, combing through records that held the truth about the community finances. In the text of hidden ledgers and archived paperwork, he uncovered evidence of financial mismanagement. It appeared that Catherine had been diverting funds into a secret shell company, siphoning money away from the community. Every record confirmed that she collected a steady management fee of $5,000 each month for herself. Meanwhile, his son Alex worked diligently to gather additional proof. In a separate investigation, Alex uncovered troubling records from police logs and community reports. He found that Catherine had lodged over a dozen false emergency calls against Marcus. Each call was a deliberate act designed to portray Marcus as a threat, a pawn in her campaign of control. Every piece of evidence built together a compelling counter-narrative. The legal loophole became Marcus's shield against oppression, and the exposed corruption laid bare the abuse of power. In that moment, the investigation transformed into a mission of justice, a fight to free the community from arbitrary enforcement and deceit. The community meeting hall was packed, every seat filled with curious, worried eyes. Catherine stepped to the podium, clicked the remote, and the large screen lit up with vibrant slides. Her PowerPoint, meticulously prepared, flashed images and bullet points, each one a so-called proof of Marcus's violations. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her tone forceful and assured, "I present to you the documented infractions committed by Marcus. Each slide here is official evidence of his disregard for our community standards." A heavy silence fell over the room as neighbors absorbed her claims. Then Marcus slowly rose from his seat. With calm authority, he addressed the assembly. "Please allow me to show you the truth." He reached into his folder and, holding up a document, stated, "This is the deed to my home. It clearly states that my property is exempt from all Homeowners Association rules." A ripple of murmurs spread through the crowd. Marcus continued, his voice steady and deliberate. "Furthermore, these records expose that Catherine's position was never legitimately elected. There was no official vote, no proper documentation to support her claim." He then produced another file with measured precision. "Here is definitive evidence of a $60,000 embezzlement scheme, community funds siphoned away for personal gain." At that moment, a phone on the table rang loudly. The call connected, and Alex's clear voice filled the hall. "My father has been wronged. Listen to these transcripts of the 911 calls. Each one is part of a deliberate pattern of abuse." The room fell into stunned silence. every neighbor absorbing the weight of the revelations. Marcus looked over the crowd, his gaze unwavering, and added softly, "Truth cannot be hidden forever." Today, we stand at the crossroads of deceit and justice. The final slide, a montage of undeniable evidence, illuminated the room, marking the definitive moment when deception began to crumble and accountability emerged from the shadows. The room grew quiet as law enforcement took the stage. Officers reviewed the piles of evidence and soon declared, "Catherine Brooks has committed criminal trespassing and fraud." The community breathed a collective sigh of relief. Neighbors realized that her relentless bullying had hurt many. They recalled the elderly widow who had been fined simply for reading her newspaper in her front yard. They remembered the local mechanic penalized for washing his car at the designated time. Each revelation painted a broader picture of her overreach. This was not an isolated incident. It was a pattern of abuse that had sown fear throughout the neighborhood. As the officers spoke, the truth became undeniable. The community felt its faith in fairness slowly restored. Then, in a clear and firm voice, a final note echoed through the hall. "Catherine Brooks' reign of tyranny is coming to a close. Justice is inevitable." The words hung in the air, a promise of change and a signal that the dark days were over.